All right, MA Marignon turned 50, about halfway to Cataclysm. Still haven't actually performed our game plan. I think we have a storm this turn against Tianqi. Finish Alteration 7. That is a pretty big benefit for us for combat. It'll let us get mass protection, which is a little risky with all the fire magic that we do, it giving fire weakness. But, we have a lot of fire resistance on the Bless, so we can probably still utilize it. And then we can also pull off Fog Warriors with a little bit of work. Doing a little bit of scrying, bringing in more patrollers and another Lamia Queen. We'll probably hold off on Lamia Queens for a little bit. We're pretty low on nature gems right now, but we will probably get more in the future. Our site searching mostly doesn't work out, but we do have one hit, the Cloven Mountain. I make no promises about double checking this, but I'm definitely not familiar with it. So hopefully it is exciting and gives us a mage, but there's a good chance it's just gems. We take control of some province. Okay, I was expecting Bandar to possibly PD dump here, but instead they left no province defense whatsoever. So my concerns were for naught. And then, yeah, it does look like Jotunheim here is raiding out against Agartha, which we were expecting, and we catch at least some of them. Like, yeah, this looks pretty cool. A really cheap mage that no doubt has a death path, yeah, and leading a bunch of undead or long dead giants. Although there's quite a bit of province defense here, obviously the war has been going better for Agartha in terms of, just territory gain and everything, and I imagine battles at one point. So, they have money to spend. This isn't a great province defense type, so the giants might actually come away with it, though they will struggle, I think, a bit with this heavy cavalry. But the giants do a lot of damage, so they're actually a lot more scary than like normal long dead. Like normally I'd say long dead, like no chance, but yeah, you can see they rout them, and then the arrows aren't really going to do a whole lot. Ooh, whoa, what is this? Well, never mind. These long dead are screwed, and this is probably some insight into like why this war has been going so poorly for Jotunheim. Middle age Agartha especially, I think Agarthas in general, but particularly middle age, gets to do like a lot of statue stuff, and these statues are sacred, right? So they carry the bless. And yeah, like some of this is useful for the statue, but some of it is not. Regardless, with 110 hit points and 34 protection, actually decent skills considering it's a statue, and pretty ridiculous strength. This guy is really dangerous. That said, he is a magic being, and he only has magic resistance 15, so there's definitely a weakness here to be exploited, and we do have Astral, so that's good news for us, particularly because he's inanimate and mindless. One of these tags, I think it's mindless, prevents you from being soul slayed. Yeah, actually, don't quote me on that. I'll have to double check, but yeah, I don't think you can soul slay these guys, so despite the low magic resistance, that's not an answer, but there are some spells that target magic beings specifically that are magic resistance negates. Now, he can fix a lot of that magic resistance problem with gears, so, like, yeah, these guys can be dangerous. We really need to think about, like, our anti-super combatant and anti-thug tech, because it's kind of a weak point for us right now. And it looks like, if we're going to have to fight Agartha, we will need to figure that out, not to mention Phlegran. And so here we are attacking with, a couple of our raiding groups against Bandar Log's capital, and we know there's a lot of province defense here, but as I suspected, he's not patrolling. Now that said, like, yeah, we're definitely way outnumbered in terms of archers, and our crossbowmen in this case actually are kind of ineffective, or less effective, right? Because it's like archer v archer duel. So we're going to be getting less shots out, and most of these monkeys just don't have enough armor that like crossbow bolts are really necessary. But it's fine. Like they're still going to get kills and everything. Unfortunately, it looks like a huge chunk, like our infantry. Our cavalry, our melee units, are getting another fire elemental out, thankfully, who's going after this other group. Because, yeah, we don't really have enough bodyguards here with this group. Luckily, firecasters are dangerous if you're not prepared. And these monkeys aren't, and, our knights are, pretty much unstoppable. So, yeah, as long as our commanders don't get taken out, we're going to come away with this no problem. And I don't think what he has in the fort is going to be able to knock us off. We'll see. There's he does still have, like, a small to medium soul slay battery left, and there's not a lot of units there that we have sitting on top, especially since one of our groups of crossbowmen routed. So there's some danger we may have to reinforce or jump off. I don't know. We'll see. I'll think about that. But regardless, that works out for us. We lose 16 crossbowmen, but we take out a ton of province defense. We do spend a decent number of fire gems. We're theoretically trying to save those. But saving gems is not my strong suit. So regardless, we have a capital. Oh yeah, and this trolls, right? Yep, a lot of trolls, so many trolls, so I'm very scared for this. We're gonna make some bugs. It should be fine. We're gonna make some bugs. We're gonna make some skeletons. We're gonna make some fire elementals. They have weakness to fire. Everybody says that trolls suck, right? Yeah, the Lamia Queen, she's gonna be invulnerable. And have a soul vortex. Somebody's on advance and cast, maybe? No? Yeah, see, fire magic. Trolls, they don't like fire magic. Yeah, see, it's fine. Really, the only danger here is if, like, one of the trolls, like, slipped around. Although the Lamia is pretty tough, right? It's really just our dudes in robes that we're at some... Yeah, we're still, like... Yeah, see the fire elementals? Like, what? Come on, guys, there's other trolls that you didn't burn. But no, they want those other trolls that are running away. But yeah, we brought some kind of scary casters, and so yeah, works out for us. Though, again, we do spend some fire gems, but still, 33 trolls. You do have to respect that at least a little bit. And then there is another raiding attempt by Jotunheim, against Agartha. Very similar kind of squad. I do think, like, these squads are cool. Like, this is a pretty efficient way to raid. And when he's up against just province defense and there isn't a freaking statue hanging out in the province, I think this is going to work out just fine, especially against Lion Tribe. Although really, like, you'd need some pretty heavy province defense investment or like a really good PD type to beat a raiding squad like this. So yeah, cool stuff. And then we are finally storming this Tianqi fort. So we'll see how many rocks get dropped on us. Yeah, we also have the Eagles that are going to go in relatively soon. Yeah, there's a few a few mages in here, but our crossbow bolts do take one out, so hopefully that messes up the communion and prevents any rocks from coming down whatsoever. Also, like, the knights, are just going in more or less immediately, and then the Eagles should come to support them here. And we just have way too much stuff here, and a lot of it is fairly fast. We're not relying on our infantry, right, to get through the gap. And this is a case where the combat speed, right, on the bless, is relevant. So that, that does help us sometimes, in situations like this. We had some unexpected events, which I'm sure will be great. Frost destroyed the crops. That's okay. We lose some stuff, but nothing too bad. And then we have another Dominion change. This is kind of rough. I think this is actually on top of our fort. So I'm not sure what's up with these. We seem to be getting them a lot. We may have to pick up some priests to fix our Dominion problems. That said, we do have the Throne of Bureaucracy, so it should fix itself in due time. There is a worldwide event. Throne of Misfortune is spreading. Yeah, we have Misfortune 2, so this is actually kind of scary for us because now we're going to go down to Misfortune 3. But, with Misfortune 2 comes a lot of misfortune events that increase misfortune. So Misfortune 2 in a lot of the cases kind of already ends up being Misfortune 3. So, it is what it is. We do breach the fortification that we're sitting on top of Bandar's, and then of course we're not even dealing any damage to Bandar Log itself because we just have more or less raiders on top of it, and there are many seekers of truths within. And then Ashdod has been vanquished. I actually moved the scout off just because I felt we knew this was coming, and there are other more interesting things to scout. Particularly, sending them up to try to get more eyes on the Agartha Jotunheim conflict, since that's looking to be in a more interesting spot than I thought. So yeah, I'll catch you guys after the jump. All right, this is the situation and what we're doing about it. This is another one of those kind of not pivotal turns, but a turning point, right? We could go a lot of different directions. Which of course, forced me to reach out and do a little bit of diplomacy. Not too much, mostly just talked with Shiniyama to make sure that because a little concerned that, we don't actually see any forces here coming to sit on top of this fort, and we have kind of annoyed Tianqi by storming one of their other forts. So we just want to make sure that, this gets locked down and just kind of sound out, where they're at. And they said, yes, they're definitely grabbing this fort. They are aware of the Agartha situation and, the setback that they've had with Jotunheim. And I also mentioned that Asphodel had jumped in against Phaecia, which they didn't really have anything to say. So not a ton of updates there, but it at least confirms that, yes, they should be locking down this fort. And then also confirmed who the sub was for Abyssia. And it is indeed our host, who is also playing as Asphodel. So, I'll have to talk to him about how we want to handle that. But I think, I'm just going to let him know that, I had a non-aggression pact with this player previously. I do think that this is just blood blood hunting that's going on. So I'm not really sure, like, how he's planning on playing this. It is a little bit awkward, since I bordered the same player that's playing 2 nations. This isn't really an ideal situation, but then again, trying to find subs for a game of this size, and they're hosting multiple of these full houses. So I mean, they've been finding lots of subs, so I don't have a problem with it, but it is a bit of an awkward situation, and perhaps contributes a little bit to us not attacking Abyssia. The other thing too, right, is I know that this player is really good, right? We didn't see any evidence of blood hunting prior, right? And like now I think this is like 2 places that they're blood hunting, and I think Abyssia with blood is a lot scarier than Abyssia without it. So on the one hand, it's like, well, you're right, maybe strike now, right? Before this good player has a chance, to build up their resources and like actually make this into a danger. Because like, while Abyssia is not big, like there's enough territory here, certainly, that they could be a thorn in anyone's side. So there's an argument to be said for that. On the other hand, it would probably be a tough fight since they're a good player. And the other thing is, I have not heard back from Phlegran. I mean, well, rather, like we've had a few other discussions, but they just have completely ignored the non-aggression pact offer. And like, just like scouts have been absolutely pouring out of these provinces, like, right, 2 scouts every turn. And like, where are these scouts going? They're going into our territory for sure. So I just think like those 2 things combined, right, they've left a pretty large stack directly on our border. Their war with Xibalba is about to wind down, but also has been kind of grindy and tough. They haven't shown a ton of magic or like really, large armies that have a lot of scary mages. They've definitely shown like some solid super combatants, which we have struggled with. So while I don't think that this war is going to be completely without challenges, I think that it's one that we're probably going to have whether we want to have it or not. And then B, also one that I think we're going to do decently well at winning. And there's also a decent amount to be gained, and we don't have to go that deep, right? Phlegran itself is pretty deep. You can see we are doing a little bit of scrying here. And he's got some Mouflon summoners, which is cool. Like, yeah, I think that's good stuff. But like, right, it's pretty much just chaff deep in here, so it's not like there's another like huge giant scary stack. Now, I mean, that said, he did seem to be garrisoning the thrones pretty effectively, but like we got patrolled out on this throne. So like, yeah, do I think that this is all that Phlegran has? Absolutely not. Like, we know there's a Bronze Colossus out there at minimum. So, Phlegran is definitely going to have stuff, but we don't actually have to get all the way to their capital to pick up some pretty significant gains, right? We have a throne right on the border, which is nice. And like, now that we have a good amount of our summons up, we don't need these guys as much. But I mean, still, like, having extra air magic is going to be really nice, especially air magic we can put into communions. Now, like on this, really weak human chassis, like we're already getting to the point of the game where these guys are going to be less useful, but still, like a throne is a throne. It's also going to give us some gold, which is nice. But beyond the throne, right, this is Nazca, right? So that's a capital. And then this is Xibalba. So we have, 2 capitals that are relatively close and like not super well defended, having just been taken in the, Nazca a little while ago, but it's exchanged hands a couple of times. And then a throne as well as like some other random infrastructure. And then the other thing too is that's going to leave us with armies that are at least near the Yis conflict that could potentially be breaking out. In theory, Pelagia is already fighting them. Again, our underwater scouting is basically 0, so we don't really know how true that is. The player seems pretty genuine, so I don't really like disbelieve them. I just, haven't really, if they are fighting, they certainly haven't made any deep raids around like Yis's capital. So anyway, we do want to keep an eye on this. Like, if we can get rid of Yis and replace them with a friendly water power, that is definitely the preference, because we do not want to have to watch ourselves. But yeah, anyway, the Phlegran War, I believe, will be our next war, and the majority, I mean, we're recruiting troops here, absolutely, although that's cut down a bit because we're recruiting paladins here. We'll probably do another round of paladin recruitment here. I'm actually kind of thinking that maybe we'll put a temple in this fort and it can just, make paladins for us. And of course, right, that's because we're going to need a good amount of like super combatant killers. So like we're also forging great sword of sharpness, stuff like that. So, limited like anti-super combatant, anti-thug gear spread across like 4 or 6 paladins, hopefully combined with like some, penetration gear, soul slay kind of stuff. We'll be able to give our armies the answers that they need. We will see. We'll probably try to break the knights out quite a bit and use them as like a lot of heavy raiders to cover a lot of territory relatively quickly. And we're not really ready for this, so we're recruiting troops here definitely. And then we're probably going to gateway this force over as soon as this fort gets locked down and as soon as I, finish discussions with Abyssia. We may also gateway the stuff in Arcocephales' capital or old capital. That said, there is this to consider. So, like, we do have a non-aggression pact with Asphodel, but, like, this is massive and, like, they're pretty big. And I think realistically they could fight anyone that they want to at this point, and that would be a tough war for whoever it is, right? And there's definitely reasons that were attractive, mainly because Foul Vapors is a bit of a struggle for us. Now, I have kind of somewhat intentionally brought out the Lizard Shamans, right? And they're going to be doing Poison Ward, which will hopefully signal to Asphodel is like, hey, I know about poison. I am somewhat prepared. Please don't mess with me. But on the other hand, right, this army is right on our border. And so we are the easiest target, other than the fact that it would theoretically have to wait 3 turns, if he wants to play nice diplomatically, which is not required. So anyway, we are moving a scout onto that fort because we are interested in that, and it may become relevant to us shortly. But of course, we are storming in Bandar, and then on top of Bandar's capital, we're actually going to move the raiding squad off because it didn't bring any gem reloads. So they're going to come and reload, and then they'll probably just jump right back on. And yeah, I think the Bandar situation is mostly over. Fingers crossed, famous last words. It could all go wrong, but I think this storm is going to be no problem. This storm will be a little bloodier, but I think still completely possible with the forces we have left. This army will probably then hang out and regroup a bit. We may strip some of the mages off to help with the Phlegran situation, but it's probably just going to hang out, right? Defend, and will become like our main force that we would use against Yis if we get involved. Otherwise, mostly just pushing around site searchers, doing recruitment, this, that, and the other. I think we're getting whoops, that's not the capital. I think we're getting another paladin here. Yeah, because these grandmasters are just brutal. I'm not even sure if I should be recruiting as many grandmasters as I'm recruiting, but we're recruiting them. We got quite a few. We're teleporting some of them out over to Mictlan to participate in this upcoming Phlegran war. So we'll see, right? The problem is you get a lot of these Fire 4 guys, and don't get me wrong, it's nice to not have to use a communion. Speed is really important, so having a high-level Firecaster isn't completely redundant. But these guys are not that different than witch hunters, so it's kind of you spend a lot of gold for kind of a witch hunter, which has not felt great. It has not felt great. So yeah, not so sure about Grandmaster production, but we're going to stick with it for now. They are our best mages. This is my first time playing Marignon in multiplayer. Let's get those Grandmasters out there doing stuff. And then probably the last thing, speaking of silliness, we went for it with research. So we're going to go for Construction 8, right? Let's just lean into this plan completely and see how it goes. We will get Construction 7 next turn, which has some useful things. I think Marignon is a human nation, so golems are always a consideration. But because they have, other things that they really want to spend astral pearls on, and golems take a lot of astral pearls, I think golems are probably less relevant on Marignon, and you get golems at Construction 7. Still, it will be a useful tool to have, and then, of course, Weapons of Sharpness is at Construction 7. So 7, yeah, it has a lot of good stuff. 8 is going to take us, a second, not too long, 3-4 turns, depending on mage use and all that. But, the artifacts are of mixed quality. But also, I've never actually hit Construction 8 in a multiplayer game, and we're going to hit it not early, but somewhat early, right? Not super late. So there's a good chance that we're going to be able to get a lot of the better artifacts. And of course, it's going to allow us to lean into our fire play more heavily. And I said that was the last thing, but I lied because I just reminded myself we are, it's turn 50. The game is officially halfway over, I think, more or less. Cataclysm is at turn 100. I think it's another one of those things that has a bit of jitter, but regardless, we're about halfway done. So I figured, we haven't even done the plan yet. we're halfway finished with the game. So our god is going to transmute fire for us. He's just going to do 37 fire gems because that is how many we get per month. So I just kind of want to see, it's okay, if we just get our fire income or our fire bank to a decent spot, and then we just convert all of our fire income into gold, what is that going to look like in terms of gold income? We may also like forge some boosters. He's like he's got room for more boosters, definitely. We could give him like a ring of wizardry and a staff of wizardry, and that would get him up to fire 8. And so we could get even more gold. And then of course, once we get the artifact, that's going to get us more gold. Then we're going to get even more gold. So like, yeah, this is sort of like the lower bound of what we can do per turn. So very interested to see, what we're going to get from that. For the mathematically inclined, you can just work it out. But who doesn't love some experimentation? And then, more things that I'm seeing. This isn't a big deal, but I have a bit of a history with trogs. And we've left these trogs here for quite some time. So yeah, we're actually going to use just an absolute ton of knights to run them over. No gems though, right? I really am trying to get away, trying being the operative word, trying to get away from, using gems on things like independence, and really just using less gems, I think would be a good goal for me as a player. And then it would allow me to, waste them on transmute fire. So yeah, I think that more or less covers it. We only have a plan really for the medium term. I haven't really talked long term because I don't really have a long-term plan in terms of like how we're going to close this out and win it. But we are definitely hitting the point in the game, and we're big enough where we really ought to start looking at like, okay, well, who are we going to need to fight in order to get like nearby thrones, right? Because that's another reason Abyssia has a throne nearby. So maybe next turn, or certainly within the next couple of turns, we'll go ahead and maybe talk about like how would we actually win this game in terms of thrones, and who are we going to have to fight, and like who's going to be scary. Ariu, definitely scary. Asphodel, pretty scary. So, but yeah, that is for the future, and I think that more or less covers turn 50.